I speak too much already, so
The Tuesday, September 14th, 2021 meeting of the Carleton School District Board of Directors is called to order. Mrs. Bachman, would you mind leading us to the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
Director Brent.
He's not able to be here tonight.
Director Honchar.
Here.
Director Apple.
Sorry, what?
Director Apple.
Here.
Director Bushfire. Here. Director O'Brien. Here. Director Simpson. Here. Director Smart. Here. Director Travis.
Here. There's a moment at the beginning of each meeting where we invite the public to comment on any agenda item. Is there anyone in the audience tonight that would like to ask questions on an agenda item? Seeing no questions, we'll move on. Finance Committee report and Superintendent report. I'll entertain a motion to approve the following two items. Number one, the Finance Committee and voting meeting report as submitted, and number two, the Superintendent's report as submitted, which I believe will be coming up shortly. Yes. Okay. Yep. So we have, I've asked for a motion. We don't move. So moved? We need a motion for?
Not for that
Not for
one.
this.
Not for that one. You can just tell me to talk.
All right, we're going to scrap this. So
Never mind. That was prayer.
just ignore what I said. Look at it. I'll tell you. We'll talk to you.
Superintendent's report and Finance Committee report. Mr. Bealby has his report to talk about the grants that we have that have come and are still coming from the state, federal government through ESSER's money. Last year, as you recall, we received somewhere in the neighborhood of $458,000 from the ESSER 1 funding. We were also notified last year over the summer of ESSER 2 and the ARP funding as well. The ESSER 2 funding has approximately $1.8 million, and the ARP American Rescue Plan has approximately $3.7 million that are attached to it as well. There are specific criteria to using that money and allocating it properly towards closing achievement gaps, working on air quality within the buildings, and a lot of other criteria that Mr. Bealby is going to share, a lot more detailed information. And then we'll walk through the process on how we plan to move forward with that, soliciting input from the board, soliciting input from our staff, from our parents, from our students and community stakeholders, with how to take that money and effectively use it towards our students in advancing what it is that we plan to do. So, Mr. Bealby, did you want to move forward with your report?
I'm not. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, tonight's will be a good night, since we're in between budgeting season, that we talk about the ESSER funding. And the good thing about the ESSER funding is it's money that is coming to the district that we are able to use to, as Dr. Kreider said, help the kids and actually help the school district in general get through the pandemic that we've all have faced in the last couple of years. So basically, what I'm going to do is just do a real quick overview. We have 3 years to go on spending this money, so this is just going to be a real quick overview. There's some many reports that we probably will be doing over the next 3 years. So first off, to start out, each of you do have a copy of the slide. what is the ESSER funding? ESSER stands for Elementary and Secondary School Relief Fund. It is federal dollars, and almost $200 billion was given to K-12 schools throughout the state. So that's quite a bit of money that was allocated to the schools throughout the state. And the way that the states distributed it, and actually the way the states were given their money from the federal government, was through the proportional share of the Title I funds from 2019 database. So that's how they came up with the formula of how much money that each of the districts got, and especially what we received also. The ESSER funds are intended to support COVID-19 response efforts, and as Dr. Kreider says, there's a wide range of level activities. I'm just going to go through a few of them, because honestly there's pages and pages that we can go through. These three issuances of the funding were derived from the following federal acts. The first one was the CARES Act, which we call the ESSER I. It was passed in March of 2020, and it placed a large focus on making sure all students had access to learning, especially with regards to technology infrastructure, curriculum, and resources for remote learning. As the pandemic progressed, the next act that was passed was the CRRSA, which is the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriation Act, which is our ESSER's number 2. That was passed in December of 2020, and that was designed to ensure that principals and schools have the resources to address the COVID-19 pandemic and all of the challenges, and it also tried to address the learning loss due to the interruptions in the education. So that was the first attempt of the government to give us some money to be able to try to fill that gap of that learning loss with the kids being remote throughout the year. And then finally, the ARP, the American Rescue Plan, ESSER III, was just passed in March of 2021. And the goal for that one is the most recent stream was specifically intended to help schools reopen, address student learning loss, and help students catch up on what they missed during the last year. So that's the three acts that drove our ESSER's money, and exactly what we're going to be talking about today. The ESSER goals, these are just some of the goals that came right straight from the ESSER's. Was one of them is to ensure schools will be financially solvent at the end of the grant period. There was a lot of concerns that several school districts were really struggling prior to the pandemic. And the biggest concern was that they didn't want school districts to have that financial burden of having to supply the technology, the extra PPE and stuff that we had to do just to get through the pandemic, and end up having to either close the school or put undue pressure onto the taxpayers. So that's one of the main goals of why we received the ESSER money. Also to ensure the mitigation of the effects of the COVID-19 on the student learning loss, and to ensure schools were prepared in the future for any major interruptions in school learning. So basically what it was is they wanted to give schools a tool, so if something like this happens, there's not going to be that gap that we had for that short time to figure out what are we going to do. Kids are home, teachers are home, how are we going to do it? So that's a lot of the major goals that the ESSER was supposed to accomplish for us. So as far as our allocations, ESSER 1, the CARES, was the $458,000, $167,000. If you see on the second column, or the third column over, it says obligation date and spend date. What that basically means is that we have to have all of our funds obligated or thought out by that 9/30, so September 30th of this year. But we have until 9/30 of 2022 to spend it. So as you see with each of the other ones, basically we have for the ESSER's 2 from 9/30/2022 to obligate everything, but we don't have to actually spend it until 9/30 of 2023. And then the ESSER 3, which is 9/30/2023. So there's the 9/30/2024. So that's our 3 years that we have really to spend on this allocation. So if you see ESSER's 2, we were allocated $1.8 million, so the 1,873,547. And then most recently we received notification that we were going to receive in the ESSER 3, $3,789,643, $643. The only caveat on this one here is that there is a 20% set aside. Now, I'll explain it a little bit in the slides coming up, that we have to put aside for the learning loss of the children. This grant, as you will see as we go through, is the most restricted and most directed at how we're supposed to spend the money. So when we look at what we've gone through with the allocation, it wasn't hard to go through and allocate this much money to this, because we didn't have to worry about that learning loss gap. We did with our spend that we did, but it wasn't directed that we had to spend the 20%, which $757,000 is a lot of money that we have to come up with things. And we'll go through that in just a moment. So the first one is the ESSERS 1. The majority of the spend for this ESSERS 1 was focused on emotional support, mental health, ensuring that we had enough Chromebooks for the kids. We also looked at, we focused on the mental health part of it for the kids to help them kind of get through that little, what's happening to me now. This is not traditional. What's going on with our schooling. And this was basically where the money was allocated for the ESSER 1 grant. As you see, there was a portion of the ESSER 1 that we did have to allocate out to our non-public schools within our district. But over there, this pretty much is the spend that we did for ESSER 1. The grant is, we've already received the money for it. The money's already been allocated out. So this grant, in all purposes, is pretty much done. So we're going to probably, in the next month or so, close this grant out, and then totally shift our focus, which we've already started to do on the ESSER 2 and then the ESSER 3.
Can you address what you mean by non-public portion? Where does that go?
The non-public portion, what we had to do, just like with our Title I, is that we had to support some of our non-public schools. Like, for instance, we used Guardian Angel, Hillcrest Christian, and St. Philip. That's where we had to send a portion of our money to them. So that our portion of the $458,000 was $14,803. So basically what it was is that it was our portion that we had to give to them to spend on expenditures. And I believe they used it on technology and their infrastructure and also purchasing of
Is St. Philip's on that list?
I think St. Philip's was on the list. St. Philip's, Hillcrest, and Guardian Angel.
So were we obligated to give a certain percentage of the total?
It's a certain amount. It's based on how many kids are actually in the schools from our district. There's a formula that is actually driven in the application.
So are all three of those schools within our boundaries?
Or is it not in our boundaries? How you might say?
No, we send kids, or children choose to go there, so it's our obligation to provide.
Okay,
funds
that's
there.
it.
Just like we do with Title, we have to provide that services there as well.
Yeah, so those, they gave us specific percentages that we had to send out and divvy out to each of those schools, one of which, St. Philip, has closed in the meantime. And I believe there was some articles in the newspaper about there were some areas where certain schools were allocated money, then they closed down. There were certain things, I believe that St. Philip, I believe they used it to purchase a phone system.
Right.
It was in that building itself, which they had to go back in and then remove some of those components. But that was well after the time that we were required to allocate the funds towards that.
So it's any school that district kids go to? Because I know district kids go to other schools, like they go to Olsh and, I mean, I'm just curious why it's those three schools. I thought it was schools within our district. Made sense to me. St. Philip's is within our boundaries. But what?
And that's what I was
I will
always
look
under
into
the
this
impression.
and get back to the financial.
Yeah, we'll definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, unfortunately, Lisa Rowley would be the one, and I'll get an answer for her or for you, and send it out to you. But, yeah, that might be my mistake too. I was under the impression it was schools within our boundaries, but.
I think it also had to do with, was it partly to do with Title I funding as well?
Yeah.
Who we send Title I funding to, and who shares that Title I funding from across
We
the
have to
state?
share.
If we had to share with those identical schools, and I think those are the only three that we share title services with.
Yes.
So I believe that was the
That might be
genesis for
what's
selecting those three, because we send to a lot of different schools, like Ulster. Ulster's not one that is a Title I school that we share resources with.
We don't really share resources.
Right.
I'm guessing.
Correct.
But yeah, we'll definitely get an answer on that. That's something that, one of the things we don't deal with, on my part of it, it's more the federal programs coordinator. She is more involved in the applications and the grants, and it is pretty directed on how much, and she puts in numbers of students and where they're at, and then it drives the money for how much, and then we pay it.
Keith, while you're paused, can you define for us what obligation means? When funds are obligated, does that mean they've been identified or a PO has to be
Right.
placed?
So that's exactly what it is. It's what, when we obligate, we actually have identified and we've gone through the process that, yes, we're going to spend this money on this amount, this expenditure. We might send out PO to it, we might sign an agreement to it, but then we don't actually have to pay it until the later date. So that's the difference. So obligating is actually saying, this is our commitment. So that's more with, now with the ESSER 2 and the ESSER 3 is that we're going to have to come up with a detailed plan. Not as much with the ESSER 2, but we'll have to, in our submissions for the applications, we have to say, all right, this is what we're looking at obligating this money for. Anytime that we change that obligation, we're going to have to go in and change our application. So that's where it's going to be really key on all of us as administration to look at where our biggest needs. And then as we will see shortly in ESSER 3, there's even a step further where we have to include our stakeholders and involvement in this. So it's so that's basically what the obligation is that we have identified, this is our plan of using it, and it's not saying that we have to pay it by that date, but when we have a date that we have to pay it by. So with the ESSERs 2, its effective date is March 13th, and all of them they basically go back to the first day of the pandemic. So with any of these ESSERs, we can go back to March 13th, 2020 and grab any of our expenditures from that period. And this one, as I showed before, September 30th is our 2023 is our date that we have to spend ESSERs 2 by, have all of our money spent. So basically with the ESSERs 2, and even with the ESSERs 1, there, like I said, there was a huge list of how many, different things that we can use. I mean, if you just look at that first statement right there, the first paragraph, all those different acts cover so many different areas of the school district that it'd be impossible for us to list everything. But what I tried to do is just take some of the expenditures that really kind of, really look towards us and, what we do and what we're going to really focus on. And, I'm not going to read each one of them, but I gave you a copy. But, some of the key ones are like activities to address the unique needs of low-income children, children with disabilities, English learners, racial and ethnic minorities, students experiencing homelessness, and foster care youth, including how outreach and service delivery meets each of the population. So that one there is really strongly addressed in the ESSER 3, but it's also there for us to be able to use it for the ESSER 1 and the ESSER 2. Purchase supplies to sanitize, clean the facility, purchasing educational technology hardware for students, which also could include the assistive or that technology, mental health, summer schools, after-school programs, including classroom instruction, online learning, which that we have already implemented. As you all know, we had the summer schools over the summer. We had extended tutoring after school during the spring. So those are some of the programs that we have already have used and identified. One of the big things that I didn't put on here, as Dr. Prager put or stated, was that we are able to use this money for buildings and grounds, which involves anything that can help increase the airflow and ventilation in a building, and also identify areas that can possibly trap or enhance virus growth. So as we go to the next slide, these are some of the items that we have initially come up with is how we're going to spend our ESSER II. On the far right is our description, and we can explain any of those. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but basically what we're looking at spending, as you see, the biggest spend right now is our facility repairs, improvement, ventilation. The reason why that's such high amount in the ESSER II is because of the point of ESSER II being so much less restrictive than the ESSER III. We're going to have to spend a lot of our ESSER III on the educational gap and different mental health programs, as you will see. So this, we have the opportunity to take care of some of the projects that we would have had to do in the future. We're replacing HVAC systems, as you see in Crafton. The windows are going to be changed in Crafton. We fixed the windows in Carnegie. And we're also going to be looking at the carpet in all of the schools, because a lot of the carpet is older. A lot of it really needs to be replaced, and we need to think, are we going to replace it, again with carpet, or are we going to go with a renewal or something to that effect? These are just some of these ideas that we think that we need to address now that we have this money available to us. We're also looking at the continuity of services as another big spend with this, where we're looking at the Carmenton Cyber Academy, getting supplies and technology for those kids that chose to continue on the online platform. Supplies and technology for the, that's what I said for that. For the Cougar Collaboration Center, we want technology and furniture for there, so that would be an additional area where we have a big room where we can spread out kids and have classroom instruction. Evidence-based activities, we're using this money to continue the study islands, the different assessment benchmarks, accelerated readers, the reflex map, and then of course, the money going towards the PPE, the cleaning supplies that we're spending a lot of money on. The buses get cleaned every day, and unfortunately that cost has to come somewhere, and it does come to the district, so we're going to divert that. So this right here is where we have decided or look at our area and have just said, okay, this is our first pass of this. So this is something that we're going to look at, discuss, because we have time before we really have to commit to anything. But we just wanted to go through every one of our expenditures and look at different things just to see how is the money going to flow. Where's the best opportunities that we have to grow programs, start programs, bring in additional people to help with mental health, or get that PPE or get buildings fixed. So that's what we've come up with right now for our efforts too. Any questions on that for right now? Oh, that's okay.
So the SST funding has not yet been obligated, or
It has not. We have not even gone through the application portion of that yet. That's correct. So that's why I'm saying that we're very much in the preliminary stages of both the ESSER II and ESSER III. ESSER II is less restrictive, so it makes it a little bit easier for us to pinpoint items that we want to spend for that. But as you'll see right now, we'll talk about the ESSER III.
So as far as the ESSER II goes, I know that for years Dennis has been giving us lists of things that need to be done in order of priority. I have to imagine what's on that list corresponding
Absolutely, yes.
So I mean, it's not like
Absolutely. Right, this is giving us an opportunity to take this federal money that we would have originally had to use taxpayer money in the future to do. So, and we're actually now giving us the ability to do these projects that we weren't sure that we might not be able to do for the next 3, 4, 5 years. So this is now giving us the opportunity. I believe Crafton's HVAC system is almost completed. If not, right, Dennis, is it? The HVAC system at Crafton's almost done, right?
On the old side of the building. The newer side, we still got about 3 weeks left in there, 3, 4 weeks.
Right, and that's a project that we probably would not have even thought about addressing until a couple years down the road. So, this is giving us that opportunity to do that. Another one of the plans is that we started the Univent replacement here in the high school. We're now going to be able to complete that. So the whole high school will have all brand new Univent systems. So what we're actually doing is we're taking our infrastructure and allowing us now to have 10 years, 20 years to not have to worry about it in the future. So it's a good opportunity for us.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So then some of these things that are listed here under SS2, which you said aren't technically obligated yet, we're
Right.
doing them.
Yes.
So they, I mean,
Some of them-
we're
some-
doing them, but
Yeah.
they will be part of this.
Yes. Right.
Just the
Yeah,
way in which
and
they'll
to
be
be clear,
reimbursed is
right.
going to be part
There
of
are
it.
some that are going to be obligated.
They're rolling.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I pointed out, I think, back in July, is that they put out the areas that we can use these for at the very beginning. They said you can do it, you can do air quality, you can ventilation, anything that has to do with that, yes, they'll be approved. We have started the HVAC system and got the plan through to do Crafton already. We had already talked about redoing all the windows to make them operable at Carnegie. And then the criteria came out, you need to get these things pre-approved. So we already started things, but we're working through the process to get them approved. The way that we structured it and did the federal bids, and we followed all the regulations that would be required. It's just a matter of filling out the paperwork now and getting those to say, yes, those projects are approved.
Right, and we had to
Everything
take,
you see they will.
and we had to take advantage of time, especially, for the captain. And of course, with the summer school and the other programs, those can be paid out of the ESSER 3. So yes, they are obligated, but we haven't officially gone through the process yet of applying for that program. But it was that, when we have the opportunity, we have to jump on it. We didn't want to miss giving these opportunities to the kids just because we didn't apply yet or we didn't do whatever. So that's really the leniency that we have with this, that we're able to go all the way back, to the beginning of the pandemic to hold the expenditures. So I mean, at any times if we get to a point which we see that we need to find something, we can go back in 3 years and look, a couple years and look. So that's the
Keith, just to interrupt, but is there any need to consider looking at what we spent in ESSER 1 and consider recalibrating that for ESSER 3?
the only problem-
Reallocating money for ESSER 1?
The only problem with the ESSER 1 is a lot of it has already been submitted to the state.
Gotcha.
Because the whole project, and most of the expenditures were completed prior to my arrival here at the district. And with each of these grants, we have to do quarterly updates. And the ESSER 1, more than the others, as we spend, they send the money. Whereas with the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, once we get approved on it, I believe it's every third Thursday of the month, we will receive an allotment. So it's a little bit different. So for us to get that money up front, we have to go through the process. But yeah, it would have been ideal if we could have. When we look at that $757,000, that's a lot of money to try to allocate expenditures for the learning gap. Great problem to have, absolutely. I mean, but it's going to take a lot of really creative thinking by principals, administrators, you guys.
I'm confident that they'll be able to knock it out of the park, right?
I've noticed that about our principals, that they don't have problems with that, which is a great thing.
Spending money?
Spending money, that's
Not one bit.
Spending money to help the kids.
help the kids. That's all.
Right.
That's what we're here for.
Curious as to why the Carnegie Auditorium is in all this list.
reason, that could potentially, and those are good things to bring up and talk about as far as what we want to spend it on. The auditorium, what we would have to do if we're using auditorium, very similar to what we're doing with the CCC, is to use it as additional instructional space to spread the kids out. So if the goal would be to use the auditorium towards social distancing, then we would be able to go through and do that. So, those are things that we can take a look at.
And Kelly, I think that came up in a conversation. I think Mrs. Bachman, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you had other ideas for that space that you could use it better for the students. So that's an ongoing, evolving
And that's what
design conversation, is that
We
right?
can talk about
Okay. It's been on our list
I mean,
for 5 years.
it. At least.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that we're noticing with these is that it's so broad of everything, and it's just interpretations. What is our interpretation compared to the state's interpretation? So what they did, as Dr. Kreider has stated, is that for any capital project purchase or project, we have to get pre-approved. So, if we say, hey, we're going to replace the carpet and all of the chairs in the auditorium, and we're going to say it's for a classroom, well, somebody up in PD could say, no, we know what you're doing, and we're not going to give that to you, and they'll disqualify it. But right now, if we can creatively explain expenditures and get it approved, once we get that approval, then we're good.
Are there any requirements under ESSER 2 or 3 for that non-public chair for the Title I schools or for Parkway under Perkins?
Not that we have seen as of, I believe it was just for the Yasser one.
I think Parkway's good.
Parkway gets their own.
I think they are
It's
starting
not,
to give.
it's not like, as generous as school districts.
But we haven't seen anything that states that we have to give anything to the non-public.
And have any of the other districts in the state already submitted an application for ESSER 2, and how has their success rate been in getting those approved?
I'm not sure too many of them. 'Cause when we were researching this, we kind of were looking at what were other school districts doing, to spend this money. A lot of the districts are still in that state of where we are now. All right, we have all this money. How are we going to effectively spend it? So we're not just spending to spend it, and that's the worst thing that we can do. So the majority of them that I've seen have not. They're at that stage where we're going to talk about right now, where for the ESSER 3, we have to go through an actual parent, or not parent, but a stakeholders meeting where we have to get input from the stakeholders. And we actually, to go I got it right from PD, it says, or from the ESSER, it says, LEAs are required to create a detailed plan for the ARP ESSER funds usage similar to plans used in comprehensive planning and school improvement planning. It says federal and state policies require all LEAs to engage in their consultation with stakeholders, including but not limited to educator staff, school staff, and their unions during this process. So we have the stakeholders, we have the parents, we have the board, we have the teachers, the administrators. So we're going to, and Dr. Pratt, I don't know if you want to kind of go through the plan that we have for this.
Yeah, I think those are things we need to consider as far as how to reach out. Do we form a small committee at some point to review everything? We get that information out. I think it's important to review, very similar to what we're doing right now, as far as what those plans are at public meetings, and then also be able to share that out with the community in the form of an e-blast, with potential survey questions to follow up, to engage individuals who don't necessarily attend and give feedback in person. But I think in general, just trying to get as much information out to people so it's transparent on how the funding is being allocated in general.
And especially because 20% of these funds have to go to that learning loss, and to focus on those students that are identified, as need additional help. So that's exactly why it's going to take a while before we can really get a good plan going to submit. Because we're going to have to really think of what's the best way. What's the best way? And also another one of the steps in this too. Not only do we have to come up with a plan, but we have to. It's typical of the way the state and the government, the federal government goes. Is that someone wrote on a frequently asked question, is there other reports that we will have to do for the ARP? And they said yes, but they haven't been written yet. But one of the steps is that we have to do an evaluation of where we are today with our students and kind of get that baseline. And then I'm sure that some of this, the follow-up is going to be saying, well, how much have we been able to improve that gap? And that's why I think it's really important that we're going to have to spend the time of, well, what are the programs that are going to most effectively help our kids get back that learning loss that they have? Or not even if it's learning loss, but to help those kids in those targeted areas to advance using this money. So that's why, as you'll see, ESSER Street, we have nothing written on there right now because we can't. We have to have that stakeholder discussion on this. So the next steps with this, the ESSERs, is that the ESSERs 2, we're going to review and finalize our allocation, look at where our projected costs are, and we are looking at late fall submitting our applications just to start the money flowing. So once again, it gets back to the obligations. If we're pretty comfortable with where we are, and we'll come to you with a plan, in the next couple board meetings and say, this is what we're kind of finalizing ourselves at of spending the ESSERs 2. Then we'll go ahead and do that so we can start that money flowing and start the programs going. And then with ESSERs 3, we have to do an impact study, which I just discussed. We have to have stakeholder engagement. We have to have the different elements of our plans set together. So there's an actual, in the application, there's a plan that we have to go through step by step. And then we have to come up with those plans for monitoring to see how we're doing on that. So this here, we also put our 2021, I don't know how realistic that's going to be, but if we do find that we have the time and our meetings are going very well with the stakeholders, with a survey or whatever, and we can identify, then we will get that much done. But as you saw, we have until 2024 to spend. So we're pretty much, ESSERS 1 is done. ESSERS 2, planning stage, ESSERS 3, it's there, we know it's there, but we have a lot of work to do. That's basically it. So I don't know if you have any other questions. Really, we're going to, honestly, over the next 3 years, we're going to be probably presenting a lot. And what I was talking to Dr. Kreider about a little bit earlier is that I might even, once we really start getting spending of the ESSERS money, is on the back of the financials, the new financials that I have. I can put a spreadsheet saying, okay, during this month, this is the ESSERS money that we spent. Just so that you're always going to be aware of what we're spending. And then when I do my financial updates, I'll do the finances of the district, and then I'll do the finances of the ESSERS. So we'll kind of tie those together. So there never will be a question of, are you guys spending? Have you spent? What are you spending on? We're going to be very transparent, as we always said that we're going to be with you and with the public of how we're going to spend this money. That's what I have here. And if any of you care to look at this, we have a 40-page guidebook for the art. That's how important it is. So I mean, it details step by step of everything that we have to do. So this is it just shows how important that art is to the government. So and it really should is, and it's more aimed at getting the kids back to it.
Quick follow-up question. Would you say that ARP 2, 20 or 30 or 40% of that money is currently allocated or obligated in our minds, if not on paper, and then the rest of it you're still working
Yeah,
with the
I would
team?
say we're pretty The $968,000 that we have up here for the facility improvement, I think we're pretty sure that those are projects that we want to.
Yeah, those are things that we had talked about when we knew we had the money coming in last year. We knew we wanted to open the buildings and try to get them safe, so the air quality, so Craft HVAC, the high school HVAC, Crafton windows, Carnegie windows, those are things that we said, yeah, these are things that, in some cases, we said we wanted to spend the money on anyway, before getting the ESSERS grants. And then being able to close the learning gap over the summer. We decided we definitely wanted to have summer school programming for our kids. We wanted to have after-school tutoring for our seniors last year. So a lot of those things they do, they quickly add up. Take a look at our chill project. We dedicated prior to knowing that any of the ESSERS funds were coming in, that we wanted to start the chill program down at Carnegie, quickly then expanding it to the high school. And then soonly realizing that these monies will be able to go back and we'll be able to compensate it back for those spending. So, yeah, I think there's probably a large portion of it that we have a pretty good idea. And I think when we start discussions with the broad community, I think we do have to have some specific ideas to share with individuals, just to give them the scope and understanding of, here's what is allowable expenses, these are not allowable expenses. Things like auditorium, we'd have to check on those things to see, is that allowable? Now with that, we also recognize that we had that 5-year plan as far as our facilities. We wanted to go through some of those things along the list that are actually being submitted. So say, for example, the Carnegie Auditorium does not qualify under this grant. We knew that we had to do some of these projects anyway. We knew that we had to do the Crafton window project. We knew we had to do something. That does then open up some funding that we have in our capital improvement to go through and knock off some of the other things that we have in that 5-year plan. So it does help, and the whole spirit of this is, as far as the funding, is making sure that school districts come out better on the other side of this, both instructionally and health-wise for kids. So I think we're headed in the right direction with everything. It's a matter of making sure we go through the right process, procedure to get things done, communicate it out effectively to people, and I think we'll be able to spend it wisely.
And just to follow up on that too, the ESSERS 2, what we saw on Friday from we thought about it over the weekend, and we shifted things from ESSERS 2 to ESSERS 3 because we know we have that gap to use. So a lot of the summer school, a lot of the mental health we had in ESSERS 2, and then all right, let's just get ESSERS 2 finished, and we can submit that and get it done. But then we thought, well, that's not a good usage of it. Let's move that over here. Let's move some more projects up into the actual ESSERS 2 project, where there's not that much restriction. Then that's where we come up with. And even like if you look in the facility, we put the strict security camera up here. We don't know about that. That's one that we're going to have to check on. I know that some districts that we've read and research saying that they're using those security cameras to monitor kids' social distancing in the hallways. So that's how people school districts are trying to label these things. And honestly, it can't hurt for us to try something like that. And once we get that paper that's signed by PD that says, okay, you're good, then that takes the risk off of us. So that's where we have a couple things that might be questionable that we will try to push through. When worded the way that they want to hear it. You never know. We'll see. If not, then we move on to another thing to fill that position. So yeah, so it's going to be something that's going to in the next couple months. And honestly too, we discussed is that if we don't want to do it in a couple months, we don't have to have it done until a later date, because we know at any time we can go back.
Since Kelly brought up the auditorium, we don't want to spend a ton of time, but do you have in your mind a plan that you'd like to execute, or have you been able to talk to Dennis or Dr. Crater?
I mean, we've talked, Dennis and I have talked prior to Dr. Crater getting here about maybe even just eliminating the chairs themselves, because most of them are broken and fixed, and some of them,
Right.
So we've talked about
taking those chairs out, carpeting it, and then putting tables, try to put tables in, or using just, sitting on the carpet for a large reconstruction that we have. The educational partnership did give us some like small tables where you can almost just sit, you don't have to use chairs or things like that I do have in storage. So we talked about that, but it never moved. We talked about that and have to pay those here.
Right, and to that point, Kelly's point, it's been on our list for a couple of years. Maybe because we think we have some funding opportunities that we haven't had in a while, if that's in your top 3 or 4 things to get done, it may not be. If it's in your top 3 or 4 things, maybe bring it back up and talk to the
Absolutely.
team. And now's the time.
Sound good?
Is there funding either in SR2 or SR3 for facilitation of the public process?
For
For
facilitation.
facilitation, to hire a professional
Yeah.
facilitator. It seems to me that a lot of the interests of some of these groups might be competing, and some of the students that we're called upon to really serve with these funds, their parents have significant barriers to participation in a public process. If they're experiencing homelessness or if they're English language learners, that might make it more difficult for them to participate. So I think that it might be good to think kind of holistically about whose voices do we want at the table and how do we minimize those barriers to participation as much as we possibly can to make sure that we've got as much community buy-in to this plan and what it means globally for our district for the next 5 to 10 years too, and the rest of our budgets and those sorts of things. It could be a good process for us to engage and explain a lot more of our thought process.
And that really is the whole focus of the ARC, is to identify those that really have those needs and to apply whatever needs it takes. And absolutely, we can hire a therapist, we can hire ESL teachers. There's really, I don't want to say there's no limit, but there's a lot less limit when it comes to bridging that gap. Yeah, and that's exactly why we need to have this stakeholders. There's things that we don't think of. That
Your point is giving us the ability to reach out to more.
Reach out to
Make
more
sure that we
people.
are
Right, yeah, we can
identifying the right
actually do it.
stakeholders.
You're looking at a facilitator for the process.
Right. Yeah, we absolutely can do that. We have someone that focuses in that area. Yeah.
And then too, it doesn't necessarily fall on you, Dr. Carter, or you, Mr. Gilby, to facilitate this whole process when you also have a day job.
No, I know that there's no restrictions as far as that. So if we have a program and we want to bring somebody that's a professional on to do that as a facilitator, absolutely. That's something that we can definitely consider.
So given that idea, and given the fact that the SH3 is a longer term program that has a substantial requirement, which is going to take time for the administration to kind of figure out, get your head wrapped around what you want to do, what's your initial thoughts, engage the public, have a broad dialogue. It's probably something that's in 2022 at minimum, but you might need to start to lay the groundwork and how you want to structure it, get some board feedback. Is that?
I believe that's probably definitely the goal that we want to do. The sooner that we identify, then the sooner we can start the programs. I think that's the ideal thing to do. But I have no need to rush because they have not put that deadline on it where we have to commit to anything right away. So that does give us opportunities to look at different things of what's happening. And we'll just keep looking at what other school districts are doing around the state or even around the country. They might have something that's creative, that's something that we never even thought of, and it might help us. So it's really been pretty interesting when you type in ARC ESSERS, you do get a lot of the school district information from different schools all over the country. You see a lot of similarities of what we're spending, but there are differences because the needs are different everywhere. Yep. Right? Yeah, that's all I have. Yep.
here. So now we turn to the part of the meeting where I ask for motion. So my apologies for screwing that up earlier.
We've practiced that before, so we know what.
I got it down. Moving on to section 3 of our meeting, I'll entertain a motion, a reluctant motion to accept the resignation from board member Marisa Mendoza, effective September 6, 2021. The board will have 30 days from September 6th to fill the vacancy, and the term of office of the appointee is effective through December 2023. A motion for Director Mendoza's resignation.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion?
I would like to just make a comment. I mean, we're really going to miss her. She really gives a very valuable contributions to this board. And she, I think, her strengths were helping us in personnel decisions or, mental health side of things. We're really going to miss her. And I think, I wish she were here so that we could say in person, thank you for your service and what you've done to help our board. So, for the record, thank you, Marisa. We're going to miss you.
I agree. I had the opportunity to reach out to her yesterday by phone just to thank her for the years of service that she committed. And I definitely found her comments to be very targeted, very direct, very thoughtful, insightful as far as thought-provoking as well. She was a strong board member. She is one who we'll certainly miss as far as leadership on the board. And she was very grateful when I talked to her, just as far as the experience. She's very appreciative of the support of the rest of the board and for the dialogue that she's able to engage in to make quality decisions for the district as well. She's very pleased with the school district. She hates to leave, but something that's in her best interest at this time. So, she'll definitely be, she was an asset that will be missed for sure.
Any other comments or questions? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion unfortunately carries. Congratulations, Marisa. I'm sorry to. Under section 4, there are 2 items. I'll entertain a motion to approve number 1, the 4th amendment to the real estate purchase and sale agreement between the district and Armstrong Development, extended to end on March 14th, 2022, as submitted. And number 2, to approve the statement of charges for arbitration services per the invoice to Gregory Gleason, Esquire, in the amount of $1,200, as submitted. A motion for those 2 items.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Under section 5, personnel, we have a total of 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 items. I'll entertain a motion to approve the following 15 items. Number 1, additions to the 2021-2022 supplemental athletic list with new coaches. Stipends for the supplemental position holders are contingent upon completion of the full school year and will be prorated in the event of a short or canceled season due to unforeseen circumstances. Number 2, the additions to the 21-22 supplemental activities list with new sponsors. The stipends for the supplemental position holders are contingent upon completion of the full school year and will be prorated in the event of a shortened or canceled season due to unforeseen circumstances. Number 3, the leave of absence for employee number ACT 93-2122-02. Number 4, to approve and appoint Emily Rose Dunker to the position of interim principal of Carlington Junior Senior High School at a salary of $90,000, retroactive to August 3rd, 2021. Number 5, the agreement between the district and John McAdoo for employment as interim assistant principal of Carlington Junior Senior High School at a rate of $300 per day. Number 6, to appoint Kimberly Call to the position of district registrar, PIMS administrator, effective September 13th, 2021, for the terms of the SCA collective bargaining unit agreement. Number 7, to approve Pamela Stone for the position of direct instruction in the home for an elementary student for up to 5 hours per week, retroactive to August 30th, 2021 at the per diem rate for the terms of the CFT collective bargaining unit agreement. Number 8, To approve Kathleen Watson for the position of Class 2 Attendance Secretary at the Junior Senior High School, retroactive to August 30th, 2021, for the terms of the SCA Collective Bargaining Unit Agreement. Number 9, to approve Cheryl Irwin for the position of Class 3 K-6 Instructional Aide at Crafton Elementary School, retroactive to August 30th, 2021, for the terms of the SCA Collective Bargaining Unit Agreement. Number 10, to approve Deborah Klein for the position of Library Clerical Aide at Crafton Elementary School, retroactive to August 30th, 2021, for the terms of the SCA Collective Bargaining Unit Agreement. Number 11, to approve Molly McGuire for the position of Instructional Aide at Carnegie Elementary School, retroactive to August 30th, 2021, for the terms of the SCA Collective Bargaining Unit Agreement. Number 12, to approve the following transition of instructional aides and cafeteria workers due to a bid meeting on August 26, 2021, retroactive to August 30th, 2021, and per the terms of the SCA Collective Bargaining Unit Agreement. Justin Lambert, Autistic Emotional Support Aide, Crafton Elementary School. Brandy Kramer, grades 4 to 6 instructional aide, Carnegie Elementary School. Jane Carr, cafeteria worker, Carnegie Elementary School. Number 13, to approve Lynn Mollica for the position of cafeteria worker, breakfast, and the classroom hacker at Carnegie Elementary School, retroactive to August 30th, 2021, and per the terms of the SCA Collective Bargaining Unit Agreement. Number 14, to approve Allison Rucker for the position of cafeteria worker at the Junior Senior High School, retroactive to September 2nd, 2021, and per the terms of the SCA Collective Bargaining Unit Agreement. Finally, number 15, to approve a list of substitute custodial workers, effective August 30th, 2021, per the terms of the Custodian Maintenance Collective Bargaining Unit Agreement. Do I have a motion for those 15 items?
Second.
Moved and seconded, thank you very much. Any conversation or question? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. And a quick thank you to all the folks that are stepping up and helping and filling in roles and evolving with us as we evolve. So thank you. All right, section 6, old business. Any director have any old business? Any new business any director would like to share? Any open forum questions from the audience? Seeing none, turn to the board. Any open forum questions for our board? Dare I ask for an adjournment? So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thanks.
Yeah.